Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Herald here on Badlands Media. I am your host, Jon Herold. Hope you're having a great Tuesday so far. We got a ton of stuff going on, a lot of things I want to discuss, and so we're going to get right to it. This is going to be the most jam-packed show you can get in under an hour. So let's kick things off with a quick word from our sponsors of today's show. First up, we got MyPillow.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
All right. Thank you, MyPillow, for being a sponsor as always. We also got Save Pulse. Today's show is sponsored by Save Pulse, formerly known as Easy RX. At Save Pulse, we're committed to keeping you and your family healthy with top quality medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and more. The ordering process is streamlined for your convenience, and we pride ourselves on offering unbeatable prices. Now's the time to prepare for any health scenario. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/meds to stock up on essential antibiotics and viral care medications. Ensure you're ready for anything by visiting badlandsmedia.tv/meds. And don't forget to use the promo code Badlands at checkout to get 10% discount on orders over $150. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/meds. Use promo code Badlands to save on your health essentials today. And thank you for everybody supporting our sponsors. It's a great way to support us. And also, if you guys wouldn't mind doing me a favor, can you please hit that thumbs up? That'd be greatly appreciated. Today, Trump is meeting with Netanyahu. They're doing a press conference at the White House. Badlands Media will be covering that, so make sure you guys are following us here on Rumble, and you can stay tuned to that. The stream is already posted, so you guys can go check that out. I want a quick run through Trump's confirmations because we got a couple posts on it. Let me see what we got here. He posted a couple things yesterday on Truth Social, and then I'm going to run through. Ash sent me a kind of a list of where everything's at in the process, so I'll read through that just so everybody's up to date. And moving forward, Ash will probably be joining just to update us on what's going on with the confirmation process. So yesterday, he did nominate Joe Kent as director of the National Counterterrorism Center. It gives him some background here. Joe Kent, he failed to win an election, a fake election, I think twice even. And so it's interesting he's being rewarded with this position, but it's an interesting position because of who has served here before. We all know Christopher Miller was a former director of the National Counterterrorism Center. So that's notable. We also got Sean Parnell. He's going to be the assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs and the chief Pentagon spokesman. And I'm really excited about this one because he's been on Badlands before. He's been on SITREP with CanCon and Alpha Warrior. So we got an in at the Pentagon now, I think you could say. Now I'm going to read through this list. I can't really share the screen for this one, so I'm just gonna read through what Ash sent over. So far we have confirmed Secretary of State Rubio, CIA Director Ratcliffe, Defense Department Pete Hegseth, DHS Kristi Noem, Department of Treasury Scott Bessent, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Lee Zeldin, Interior Doug Burgum, Energy Chris Wright. In process and on the schedule, RFK was voted out of the Finance Committee this morning. Tulsi's Intelligence Committee vote is supposed to be today. I think she texted me that it's going to be at like 2:30. I think that's Central Time. Let me just double check what she said here. so don't give you any misinformation. Yeah, they're voting. They aren't voting till 2:15, so we won't know during the show, but that'll be expected today from Tulsi. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Committee vote is tomorrow. Kelly Loeffler, the SBA Committee vote tomorrow. Cash for Judiciary Committee vote Thursday. Jameson Greer, U.S. Trade Representative, hearing in the Finance Committee Thursday. Senate invoked cloture on Bondi. Confirmation vote expected at 1 a.m. tonight. And so they voted yesterday to have the actual vote for it tonight at 1 a.m. That's so late. I don't know why they would do that. In process, not on the schedule, Brooke Rollins was advanced out of the AG committee, and Dan Driscoll is still in the Armed Services Committee. In the process, just so you guys know, committee hearings, only one committee has jurisdiction to advance them to the floor, but several committees can do courtesy hearings, as we saw with RFK in the Health Committee. Committee with jurisdiction votes to advance to the floor favorably or unfavorably. Once they advance out of committee, the nominee goes to the floor. For some reason, they can only do it one time or one at a time. So that's where it bottlenecks. When the Senate invokes cloture, a 30-hour clock starts to limit debate. And when the clock runs out, they vote, which is why Bondi is at 1 a.m. So we'll keep you up to date on that. Just so you guys are aware, in 2017, at this point, and again, this is all according to Ash, so thank you, Ash, for sending this along. At this point in 2017, there were only 4 of Trump's picks confirmed, so we're doing better. All of Obama's initial picks were confirmed by February 24th, so we're still ahead of that. Biden's went into May. He had 13 confirmed in March, though. Anyway, so we'll keep you up to date with that information as it comes in. The one interesting one that came out yesterday that I'll show you guys here is Michael Ellis. Michael Ellis was tapped as the deputy director of the CIA, and I absolutely love this. And if you followed my series prior to this, the Devolution series, you'll know why this is so intriguing. He served at the NSC. He helped with the unmasking. It was him and Ezra Cohen Watnick who revealed to Devin Nunes. He gave them the intelligence reports that the Obama administration was unmasking Trump and his associates. So those two were intimately involved in that. And then he went on and he was named the general counsel at the NSA, as Trump says here. He was selected to be the general counsel of the NSA before being corruptly purged by the Biden administration. That whole process was fascinating because the reason he didn't get in right away, like they nominated him, he was set to be the general counsel of the NSA, but there was administrative procedures that stonewalled him and prevented him from being in there 4 days before the Biden administration took over. So January 16th, Acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller gave an order to General Nakasone, like, hey, he will be placed as general counsel of the NSA immediately. Like, stop dragging your feet on this, put him in there. And everybody freaked out. Nancy Pelosi was doing press conferences. Everybody's like, oh, we can't do this. This is something to interfere with the incoming Biden administration. And as soon as the Biden administration got in there, he was gone. They fired him. After that, he went on to work at Rumble and heard nothing but good things about him. So very excited about this one, him going to the CIA with John Ratcliffe. They're going to clean some house over there, and there's nobody better to do it. Quick news on the airport situation, the airplane crash from the other day. There were 2 airport authority workers who were arrested for leaking the DC plane crash video to CNN. I thought that was kind of interesting. They arrested 2 guys for leaking the close-up videos of the helicopter crashing with the airplane over the Potomac. I don't know why that's such a huge deal, but maybe they, I guess, just weren't allowed to leak that info. Some geopolitical stuff. Marco Rubio was in El Salvador meeting with Bukele, and Bukele posted this. And I just think it's the funniest picture because this looks like a Cialis commercial. But they were taking care of business. I think there were some good negotiations. This is probably the most interesting one that came out of their meeting. Bukele posted that we have offered the United States of America the opportunity to outsource part of its prison system. We are willing to take in only convicted criminals, including convicted U.S. citizens, into our mega prison, CCOT, in exchange for a fee. The fee would be relatively low for the U.S., but significant for us, making our entire prison system sustainable. Now, if you remember, Bukele, he's like, no, not only is he completely like switched and flipped over the way things are done in El Salvador. He got rid of MS-13 like overnight, very, very quickly. He got the military to go in and round them all up, and they all got put in prison. And then he started buying Bitcoin, and he's just super base now. But it's just interesting that the discussion point was sending some of our criminals to a foreign prison, a foreign country's prison. Just like last week, there was talk of sending people to Guantanamo Bay, which on that note, they have started migrant flights to Guantanamo Bay. So we're going to max out that prison up to 30,000 prisoners and then start sending them to El Salvador. It's pretty fascinating. Trey Raider in the chat, I went to YouTube to give a thumbs up, but it's not allowing me to do so, John. I don't know why that would be. Let me check if it's even working over on YouTube. Yeah, it says it's live. 31 people watching over there. Appreciate that. Make sure you guys all go subscribe, youtube.com/@TDHerold. Giving that thumbs up would be greatly appreciated. But let's keep going here. Let's talk a little bit about Canada. I said on the show yesterday that, and this was between Trump's call with Mexico and Trump's call with Trudeau, that there's a pattern forming. We're likely going to see Canada bend the knee. And you almost got to wonder how much of this is just for show and scripted anyway. You know, Trudeau has gone to the White House, or at least Mar-a-Lago, a couple times now, I believe. And some of that was even before Trump got in office. What were they talking about? Was this on the agenda at those discussions? Like, hey, you're going to pretend to, disobey me. I'm going to tariff you, and then you're going to bend the knee to me. Who knows? That's a little conspiratorial maybe, but we figured he'd bend the knee. Not that it was hard to predict that was going to happen. And he did. Canada has agreed to ensure we have a secure northern border and to finally end the deadly scourge of drugs like fentanyl that have been pouring into our country, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans while destroying their families and communities all across the country. Canada will implement their $1.3 billion border plan, and as per Prime Minister Trudeau, will be reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists and ensure 24/7 eyes on the border. Launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will begin backing it with $200 million. As president, it is my responsibility to ensure the safety of all Americans. I'm doing just that. I'm very pleased with this initial outcome, and the tariffs announced on Saturday will be paused for a 30-day period to see whether or not a final economic deal with Canada can be structured. Fairness for all. Almost makes you wonder, are we going to get a new USMCA deal negotiated? I think the next negotiation period was set for July of 2026 or something. That's when the original deal is up. So, but again, very curious based on who he's working with, how this stuff is going to play out. But yeah, it did get updated on the website. Progress on the situation at our northern border, and yeah, just paused the tariffs. Like I said last night on Basis Conspiracies, we need to build an ice wall on our northern border, just like in Game of Thrones. I think that is totally acceptable. I wonder if there's anything new on the website today, or since I started looking at stuff. Nothing. We will get into the Sovereign Wealth Fund here in a second. I just want to continue a little bit on some of this tariff talk. It's kind of funny seeing how the left is responding, because the left were freaking out. The media, we got to come up with a phrase for these people. I don't know what to call them. I switched from the left to liberals to the mainstream media, deep state establishment. There's got to be a better word. The stupid people in our country. We could even just settle on that for now. Trump blinks on North American tariffs. President Trump never admits a mistake, but he often changes his mind. That's the best way to read his decision Monday to pause his 25% tariffs against Mexico and Canada after minor concessions from each country. Mr. Trump claimed victory, as he always does. And that's just hilarious, because they're saying he's the one that blinked, even though he got everything he wanted and then some. And especially when you consider the position that he's in, it makes no sense that, he had he gave up the upper hand with this. Like, he had the upper hand. He has the upper hand. He didn't blink here. He got what he wanted. He threatened them with tariffs. He implemented them, and then they bent the knee. He would have carried it out. But let's go on here to the China stuff. Because these tariffs were implemented. The Chinese tariffs were put through, and this is what's going to get more expensive now that Trump imposes tariffs. Well, I thought this was a pretty interesting list. Need a new computer, television, phone. Might want to consider getting one now. That's because President Trump enacted a new 10% across the board tariff on Chinese goods Tuesday morning. Economists warn that the tariffs hurt American businesses and consumers, many of whom are still reeling from a sharp rise in inflation in recent years. That's kind of notable because for a while there, they said that inflation wasn't that bad when Biden was president, when they were covering for Biden. Now it's a sharp rise in inflation. Isn't that interesting? Tariffs are paid by U.S. importers, not the countries at which the tariffs are aimed, as Trump has claimed. These costs are often passed on to retailers and eventually American consumers. In addition to the new 10% tariff, Chinese goods are subject to additional tariffs, a 100% tariff on electric vehicles and 25% tariff on steel and aluminum products. But several items had been exempt from tariffs. One of the biggest exemptions had been consumer electronics, but that exemption is no longer in place with the new across-the-board tariffs. That matters because consumer electronics are among the top goods the U.S. imported from China last year. Communications equipment accounted for 12% or $47 billion of the $401 billion worth of the goods imported from China last year, not accounting for December. Communications equipment includes everything from cell phones to TVs to satellites. Then comes the $37 billion category of goods deemed miscellaneous manufactured commodities. The U.S. imported from China last year toys, jewelry, silverware, and sporting equipment are all among the goods included in that umbrella category. Do you guys ever see like every little bracelet, every little dinky toy you bought for your kids on Christmas, all these things, how many of them are made in China? And we've been saying over the last couple of years now, go to badlandsmedia.tv, click on shop, support the America First companies. You could just start doing that now and you won't have to worry about these items getting more expensive. Another item here, also expect shoe and sneaker prices to rise. The footwear industry is particularly exposed to tariffs because roughly 99% of all shoes and sneakers sold in the U.S. are imported mostly from China and Vietnam, according to footwear distributors and retailers in America. Prices probably won't rise immediately on stuff coming into the United States from China. Goods have been warehoused with the additional 10% tariff for quite some time. So yeah, it seems like electronics are going to be the ones going up. We also got... let me see. Oh, man, I thought I had another article about... Oh, yeah, here we go. China hitting back on tariffs because they retaliated. China's like, okay, well, you're going to do tariffs just like Canada and Mexico were set to do, threatening tariffs in response. They actually did it. But U.S. President Xi won't be speaking today, allegedly. So this one might not get flipped around right away. And maybe it won't at all. Who knows? We got to get our tariff income from somewhere. Trump keeps talking about getting this tariff income. And so far, every time we've implemented tariffs, we got what we wanted otherwise, and they haven't come through with it. But them hitting back at us real quick, I'll read this. Beijing announced a broad package of economic measures targeting the U.S. on Tuesday, hitting back after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed 10% tariffs on Chinese imports. The fresh duties announced by China's Ministry of Finance levy a 15% tax on certain types of coal and liquefied natural gas and a 10% tariff on crude oil. Measures take effect on February 10th. Announced new export controls effective immediately, more than 24 metal products. There's one part in here that I found very interesting. So China's measure appears to vary in their potential impact on the U.S. economy and businesses. For example, China is the leading global producer of tungsten concentrates, representing more than 80% of world production. And so by tariffing that, which they are, it's a very small portion of overall bilateral trade. The Chinese tariffs target at most $20 billion of the country's annual imports from the U.S., or about 12% of the total, which is a far cry from the $450 billion in Chinese goods being targeted by the U.S. So doesn't that seem weird? Like we're tariffing and targeting like $450 billion in Chinese goods, and they're only targeting 12% of ours, 20 billion. that just seems weird. Like, that's not very retaliatory. You know what I mean? By the way, Loaded Gun Coffee, guys. Keeps me alive these weekdays. But yeah, I don't know what to think about that yet. I haven't really fully thought it through, but when I read this, it just stuck out to me because that's not a trade war. That's a type of concession. That's like, I'm going to save face with my country and people in my country by saying I'm hitting you back with a 10% tariff, but I'm going to tariff stuff that we don't really trade in anyway. So you're not going to actually feel the financial impact of that. It's just weird. So we'll see how Trump handles that. There might be, there's certainly more going on with all this stuff than meets the eye. But Trump did post this yesterday, last night anyway. I thought it was interesting. Great interest in TikTok would be wonderful for China and all concerned. And I wonder if that's connected to any of this. So we shall see. But the big one yesterday that got signed, President Trump orders a plan for United States Sovereign Wealth Fund. I am excited about the prospect of this. The only thing is with this executive order currently, it doesn't necessarily do anything. I'll read through it, but it just, hey, I'm directing the Secretary of Commerce and Treasury to come up with a plan to create this. We don't know any of the details yet, but here's what the EO says. It's pretty short. It is the policy of the United States to maximize the stewardship of our national wealth for the sole benefit of American citizens. To this end, it is in the interest of the American people that the federal government establish a sovereign wealth fund to promote fiscal sustainability, lessen the burden of taxes on American families and small businesses, establish economic security for future generations, and promote United States economic and strategic leadership internationally. The Secretary of the Treasury and the Secretary of Commerce, in close coordination with the Assistant to the President for Economic Policy, shall develop a plan for the establishment of a sovereign wealth fund consistent with Section 1 of this order. The Secretary of the Treasury and the Secretary of Commerce shall jointly submit this plan to the President within 90 days of the date of this order. Such plan shall include recommendations for funding mechanisms, investment strategies, fund structure, and a governance model. The plan shall also include an evaluation of the legal considerations for establishing and managing such a fund, including any need for legislation. And I think I'm going to look here because I think Burning Bright had a pretty good post on this and how it related to Saudi Arabia and what they've done with their sovereign wealth fund. And there's certainly a parallel between that and what Trump I think is setting up here. Gosh, why does his posts are always so darn long? Like I can't read all this. But essentially the Saudis created theirs in 2015, and the too long didn't read of this, which I'm not going to do, is a lot of the corruption and stuff that was tackled by the Saudi Arabians and Crown Prince Mohammed. A lot of the finances that were seized from that were put into the sovereign wealth funds. Like right here. Indeed, the PIF is an outlier even compared to the deleterious role sovereign wealth funds have had in some other countries, as the fund has benefited directly from serious human rights abuses linked to its chairman, blah, blah, blah. This includes the Crown Prince's 2017 anti-corruption crackdown that consisted of arbitrary detentions, abusive treatment of detainees, and the extortion of property from Saudi Arabia's elite. And that got thrown into their sovereign wealth fund. And man, it really does seem like that's a great place for this. This is something you're going to want to establish right away. If some of the corruption things we've been discussing over the last couple of years do come to fruition, this is a great landing spot for seized assets, seized Bitcoin or whatever, drainage, as Chris Paul would call it. So very, very excited about this and the potential for this. But yes, I know BB is not short-winded. I've told him so many times. I've told him directly, I was like, hey man, I will share your posts if I look at it and I'm willing to actually read it. But if it's too long, I'm not going to read it. And then I'm not going to share. I can't share something I haven't read. So Burning Bright, I know Mrs. Bright is probably watching. She watches the show. She's #1 fan, I've heard. You got to tell him that if he wants me to share stuff more, it needs to be more concise. The TLDR version should be all he posts. Anyway, let's keep going here because this is the kind of the breaking news. It's not out yet, and this has been anticipated for a while. Trump said he was going to do this on the campaign trail, but supposedly today or very shortly, we're going to get an EO to initiate the Department of Education's elimination. The Trump administration is drafting that EO. And here's what CNN said. So it's according to two sources familiar with it. We don't know if it's all the details are totally confirmed, but this is what they said. This is what we know, hoping it comes out today. The Trump administration has begun drafting an EO that would kick off the process of eliminating the Department of Education, the latest move by President Donald Trump to swiftly carry out his campaign promises, two sources familiar with the plans told CNN. The move would come in two parts. The order would direct the Secretary of Education to create a plan to diminish the department through executive action. Trump would also push for Congress to pass legislation to end the department, as those working on the order acknowledge that shuttering the department would require Congress's involvement. I wonder why, though. I suppose Congress probably created it, and therefore that's why it would require Congress's involvement. But do we really need Congress? Trump's been doing a pretty good job not involving Congress, and I like that. I'm here for that. Let's keep it that way. While calls to abolish the department or merge it with another federal agency are not new, the move has historically failed to get support from Congress. During Trump's first term as president, his administration proposed merging the education and labor departments into one federal agency. Even though Republicans controlled both the Senate and the House of Representatives at the time, the proposal did not go anywhere. This year, the Education Department is simultaneously being targeted by the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk. We're going to talk about some of that stuff here in a little bit. But also, dozens of employees at the Education Department were placed on paid administrative leave Friday as part of Trump's administration's larger effort to rid the federal workforce of employees associated with diversity. I guess I could have read the rest of that. DEI, all that stuff. The DEI stuff has been great. A lot of winning with that. But yeah, I'm curious to see what the EO says on this, like I am on all of them. And as I've talked about over the past couple of weeks, the education stuff and Trump's focus on that and the school choice, I'm really loving his approach. And it hits close to home. My kids go to Catholic school. I used to work at a Catholic school. My dad does work at a Catholic school. I went to Catholic school growing up. I've been part of the fight, like firsthand, trying to get the North Dakota legislature to support more school choice funding, like getting the money to follow the kids and not just go to fund these public institutions. And it's been a challenge. A lot of these conservatives, fiscal conservatives, the people who allegedly support Trump's agenda, even like a Kelly Armstrong, governor of North Dakota. And I know this is more local to me, but I'm sure you guys can probably relate to this wherever you're at. But these people put on the facade of being MAGA Trump supporters, pushing that America First agenda. But then when it comes to brass tacks and them actually implementing that agenda, they fall short if they even try to do it at all. They talk a big game, and that's what I've seen here. I've lived that. So I'm very excited about what Trump's doing here. I hope he does abolish the Department of Education, and I wonder what that's going to do. I think a lot of people are going to freak out over it, but our education numbers, our scores are terrible. Something's got to be done. We got to make this more efficient too. Okay, we're going to move more to some of the FBI stuff going on. I just have a clip I want to play, and then we're going to get into the USAID, because that is like the number one story, I would say, going on social media the last couple of days. Everybody's freaking out over the USAID funding. But first, I just want to play this one clip from Andy McCabe. Listen to this.
This is totally unprecedented. FBI rank and file agents and analysts who make up the vast majority of the field offices who do the work of investigating these cases, of executing search warrants, of executing arrest warrants, doing surveillance, electronic surveillance, whatever it might be. Those people are never touched by the political winds that blow through every 4 years, nor should they be. They, as you said, they don't pick their work. They're assigned to the work that they do. The work they do is lawful. It's within FBI policies, and not doing the work is not really an option for them, right? They come to the FBI. Most of them come intending to stay for the entirety of their careers, 20 years or more, 20 years on the agent side, a little bit more for the support side. And so to be targeted in this way for termination potentially, or retribution simply for doing their jobs on a major national security case is incomprehensible to them or anybody that knows the organization. I've talked to more FBI people in the last 4 days than I did in the prior 4 years. As Jon has described it accurately, it is a place in utter disarray right now. People are worried about, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to support my family? If I lose, if you're anywhere in the middle of that career, not close to retirement, if you get fired, you're done. That's the end of your reputation, your ability to get a new job. You lose your pay, you lose your chance at a pension, you lose your health insurance. This is a moment of terror for these people. It is absolutely disgraceful that they are being put through this in the middle of some political gamesmanship or active retribution. They don't deserve to be treated this way. It's unlawful and it's disgusting.
And John,
This is totally.
I got to say, all the right people are freaking out right now over what Trump has been doing with not just the USAID, but the FBI as well. Like all of it. All the right people are freaking out. What I mean by that is people like Andy McCabe, who were part of the Russiagate, Spygate stuff, everything that's been wrong with our country and our intel agencies, all the people who were involved in targeting Trump and spying on Trump and fabricating a story that he was associated with Russia and Putin's puppet, all those people are freaking out over what Trump is doing here. And I understand the theory of, okay, FBI agents should be apolitical. They should be allowed to operate from, one president to the next without, the fear of retribution or being fired or all these things. That's a great theory. But in practice, the last few years, the last few presidential terms, it hasn't really actually worked out. Okay. When you get from the top down, issues from the top down, the leadership down, and all the people in these key positions at the FBI doing what they did to not just Trump, but all of the American people, political persecutions. I don't care how much you whine on TV with Anderson Cooper. I don't care how much you try to make us feel guilty about these people losing their jobs. What about the people that they targeted and what they went through? If these people committed crimes or participated in political persecutions, they deserve to be fired and they can learn to code. I could care less. And that's the stuff that we need to get. That's what Kash Patel is going to do. He's going to get to the bottom of it. If you're an actually honest, good agent and did honest, good things as you were supposed to, if you did your job, you're not going to get fired. You have nothing to worry about. And that's what I don't understand. Why is Andy McCabe freaking out? Because that's normal. That's business as usual everywhere else in the world. If you do your job, you keep your job. If you're not doing your job, if you're breaking the law, you're going to have repercussions for it. But of course, he was part of the people breaking the law and not doing their jobs and putting on the political persecution. So every single one of those people are probably going to roll on Andy McCabe, and he is going to have a nice life at either Gitmo or, what was it, GTOC, whatever the El Salvador prison is. Anyway, let's talk about the USAID. This might get a little confusing. I'm a little confused about how I want to go through this, but I do have a few things that I want to get to that I think are pretty interesting, and I think there's a bigger theme to what is actually going on with this, with Musk, with Doge, with the Treasury Department, with USAID, all these things. But I want to start with this. This is the Department of State taking over the USAID, Marco Rubio, and this is what he said on it. And again, just very interesting. We got to listen to this clip.
You're now the head of USAID. The head of Doge, Elon Musk, called USAID a criminal organization and added that it is time for it to die. Do you agree with that?
They have basically evolved into an agency that believes that they're not even a U.S. government agency, that they are a global charity, that they take the taxpayer money and they spend it as a global charity, irrespective of whether it is in the national interest or not in the national interest. One of the most common complaints you will get if you go to embassies around the world from State Department officials and ambassadors and the like is USAID is not only not cooperative, they undermine the work that we're doing in that country. They are supporting programs that upset the host government for whom we're trying to work with on a broader scale and so forth. So they're completely unresponsive. They just don't consider that they work for the...
Did you guys catch that? It's like we're working with a government, and the USAID is working counter to the work that government wants. The USAID, guys, is like deep state through and through. It's like it's a front for the CIA. We talked about this yesterday. Everybody's talking about this. The stuff they're funding is insane. But this is like the point here. Like, we have allies. We have people that we want to work with, that this agency is supposed to be working with to help support certain things. But instead, they're actually working counter to what we want them to be doing. And we're going to get into some of that here in a little bit.
The U.S. They just think they're a global entity and that their master is the globe. and not the United States. And that's not what the statute says, and that's not sustainable.
Can it be reformed, or does it need to die?
Well, that was always the goal, was to reform it. But now we have rank insubordination. Now we have basically an active effort where their basic attitude is, we don't work for anyone. We work for ourselves. No agency of government can tell us what to do. So the president made me the acting administrator. I've delegated that power to someone who's there full time, and we're going to go through the same process at USAID as we're going through now at the State Department. I think there are some, this is not about getting rid of foreign aid. There are things that we do through USAID that we should continue to do that makes sense. And we'll have to decide, is that better through the State Department, or is that better through something, a reformed USAID? That's the process we're working through. There are things that are happening at USAID that we should not be involved in funding, or that we have a lot of questions about, but they're completely uncooperative. So we had no choice but to take dramatic steps to bring this thing under control.
Do you think that we'll?
Yeah. So USD is screw, guys. They found the key to the golden goose here. I really, and everybody's on top of it, right? I'm not the only one talking about this. Everybody's talking about it. A lot of people on Twitter are posting like, "Hey, did you guys know that there's funding for this? Did you know there's funding for this?" It's very interesting watching the fallout from this entire thing. There's actually a good thread on Twitter too, from @smug_editing. I'll make sure to share this out here later. That's pretty, it's got some interesting stuff in here and an interesting perspective on it. And there's one thing that I was actually planning to discuss today that they point out, but they didn't quite take it all the way. It's this one here. And so we're going to get into that here. This is the move that happened actually last Friday. The highest rank in this, Robbie Starbuck on Twitter, the highest ranking Treasury official, David A. Lebrick, is resigning rather than complying with a request by Doge for access to audit where they've spent trillions of dollars a year. Why would career bureaucrats fear an audit by Elon Musk and Doge to see where we can save money? Elon Musk reposts it and says, the Doge team discovered, among other things, that payment approval officers at Treasury were instructed always to approve payments, even to known fraudulent or terrorist groups. They literally never denied a payment in their entire career, not even once. What? Not even once. But I think this is more important than even that. Okay. There's just bear with me on this. Let's walk through this. Okay. Elon Musk's team now has access to Treasury's payments system. And this is a lot of the reasons like people were freaking out. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent gave representatives of the so-called Department of Government Efficiency access to the federal payment system late on Friday, according to 5 people familiar with the change, handing Elon Musk and the team he is leading a powerful tool to monitor and potentially limit government spending. And this is from February 1st, so we're a few days behind. The official, a career civil servant named David Lebrick, was put on leave and then suddenly retired on Friday after the dispute, according to people familiar with his exit. The system could give the Trump administration another mechanism to attempt to unilaterally restrict disbursement of money approved for specific purposes by Congress, a push that has faced legal roadblocks. Let me see. Okay, got a couple more things. Last weekend, Mr. Krause had pushed Mr. Lebrick for entry to the system. He refused and was subsequently put on leave, and then he quit. In a process typically run by civil servants, the Treasury Department carries out payments submitted by agencies across the government, dispersing more than $5 trillion in fiscal year 2023. Okay, so Mr. Lebrick, right? That's this guy. And this is an article from 2023. And I think you'll see where I'm going with this once I start reading through this. The man in charge of knowing when the U.S. runs out of money. And again, 2023, as the debt ceiling deadline approaches, the team at the Treasury Department is tracking the cash very carefully. I think this is why they took over this agency. I'll explain in a minute. More than $6 trillion flows out of the Treasury every year in payments, salaries, and purchase orders, and more than $5 trillion flows in, mostly through tax collections and fees. Lebrick's job is to make sure that these billions of transactions go smoothly. His attention is in particular high demand these days. Blah, blah, blah. He is the guy that's most responsible for figuring out how the United States should handle the alarming prospect of running out of money, making him pivotal, if lesser known, player in the debt ceiling standoff consuming Washington. Again, 2023. Lebrick, for instance, provides the financial estimates to Yellen, which are then sent to Congress as warnings of the X-date deadline by which the nation will have exhausted its funds. He plays a crucial role in coordinating and determining how much money the Treasury needs to borrow to finance the government. His team also prepares and manages the extraordinary measures that the Treasury has been deploying since January to delay a default as long as possible. He runs the nation's checkbook. He's not quite the CFO of the country, but he's pretty close. Because the nation routinely spends more than it collects in revenue, the debt ceiling must be raised to prevent a government default, which many economics predict could cause a global financial crisis. Again, guys, this is why they took this over. I think they're planning to default. If the deal falls through and Congress fails to raise the debt limit in time, Lebrick will likely be at the center of deciding how to structure the payments the government can still make. Even though tax revenue will continue to come into government coffers, it would not be enough to cover all the payment obligations Congress is legally obliged to make the government to make. Treasury would be in the unprecedented circumstance of having to choose which checks to cut. Lebrick and his team would be expected to draft recommendations to Yellen and other political leaders, laying out the options for managing an unprecedented default, according to former Treasury officials. If that day comes, he would be in completely uncharted territory with no guidebook. It would be up to him and his team to prepare options of which bills to pay for. Okay, so I want to do a little flashback. Okay, 3 days before Janet Yellen left and Trump was inaugurated and all these things, there's changeover. We have acting people in a lot of places. Right now, Scott Bessent is at the Department of Treasury. But before she left, Janet Yellen sent this letter to congressional leadership regarding the debt limit. Okay, and I've talked about this before, but this is just a good reminder of what she said. I write to keep you apprised of actions the Treasury Department is taking in regard to the debt limit. In my letter from December 27th, I noted the Fiscal Responsibility Act suspended the statutory debt limit through January 1st, 2025, established a new limit effective January 2nd, and I informed you that the Treasury expected to reach the new limit between January 14th and January 23rd. This letter serves to notify you of the extraordinary measures that the Treasury will begin using on January 21st. First, I've determined that by reason of the statutory debt limit, I will be unable to fully invest in portion of Civil Service Retirement and Disability Fund, blah, blah, blah. Some of these will begin on January 21st and last through March 14th. So these are the extraordinary measures they're taking to keep the government afloat, and they're going to run out of money on March 14th. The period of time that extraordinary measures may last is subject to considerable uncertainty, including the challenges of forecasting the payments and receipts of the U.S. government months to the future. The debt limit does not authorize new spending, but it creates a risk that the federal government might not be able to finance its existing legal obligations that Congresses and presidents of both parties have made in the past. I respectfully urge Congress to act promptly to protect the full faith and credit of the United States. So in a situation where we reach our debt limit, which we are on that path right now, Congress needs to negotiate a new a debt limit package or whatever soon, like in March. That was one of the first things. If you remember the continuing resolution that was passed a couple months before Trump actually got inaugurated, they wanted this huge bill. They're going to fund the government for a while, huge bill. They ended up getting called out on a bunch of stuff. Even Badlands, we played a part in picking through that thing. And they ended up putting through a much smaller bill. Trump wanted in there a permanent release, or at least a couple of years of getting rid of the debt ceiling again, because they had it in there. The debt limit was suspended through January 1st. Trump is like, hey, just continue it. Keep that going for another 2 years. They wouldn't do it. Congress passed the bill because of all the fiscal conservatives in our government. They said, no, we can't do that. And so the debt limit is still in there. The person right now in charge of determining where we spend our money if we reach our debt limit and run out of money is the guy that just left. This guy. When we run out of money, this guy's the guy who decides what gets paid, what bills get paid. And now Doge took that over. And then I always think back to Trump in that town hall when he said this.
Mr. President, we've got another voter here tonight.
And by the way, you're going to default eventually anyway, but it's going to be much messier.
How many times has Trump talked about a default? Are we on that path? Maybe. I mean, maybe something gets passed, but if we were to default, on top of all the corruption stuff going on, and I have a few more things I want to get to with USAID, but if we are set on that path, Doge is going to be the one now that decides what bills get paid. I can't think of a better way to show people what government agencies are completely unnecessary, then having the government run out of money, and what money you do spend is only on certain things. And you can stop spending money on all the irrelevant ones that we don't need and just show people like, yeah, we haven't funded this thing for 6 months and you have felt no tangible impact from that government or that agency essentially not existing. So I'm here for it. I kind of want to see our government not implement a new debt ceiling. Let's default. Let's see what happens. And let Doge decide, based on their metrics or whatever they want, which aspects of our government actually get funded. You fund the things that you think we actually need, and all the rest is going to be whatever. Let's break the Fed. Bravest in the chat. I agree. Okay, a couple more quick things. Let's see. I mean, this is... Nah, we don't need to go through that. We're kind of running low on time. I did want to point this out. I was looking through some CRS reports and just doing a little research on the USAID in general. And I came across the CRS report, Democracy Promotion, an objective of U.S. foreign assistance. And there's a few interesting things in here where they mentioned the USAID. And this is, again, from just 2019. That's fairly recent, considering. But let me read this. President Clinton made democracy promotion one of the pillars of his foreign policy, titling his early security strategies, National Security Strategy of Engagement and Enlargement, asserting that enlarging the community of democratic and free market nations served all U.S. strategic interests. The 90s saw tremendous growth in democracy promotion activities, which experts have attributed to a low threat perception, a global wave of democratic transitions that provided many windows of opportunity, and no strong ideological rival to Western liberal democracy. The global spread of democracy seemed inevitable to many at the time, and democracy promotion and support became deeply integrated into the U.S. foreign policy structure. Clinton created a Democracy and Governance Office at USAID and the Office of Transition Initiatives to take advantage of opportunities for democracy in countries in transition. So back in the 90s, Clinton created a democracy promotion group at the USAID. And what does that even mean? Like, what the heck were these people doing? Well, they were just supporting elections, guys. Through support for increased electoral participation, SIEP project in Afghanistan, the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, has supported training for party poll watchers and candidate agents to effectively participate in election activities, implemented in-depth, multi-month civic education initiatives for women advocates and youth leaders on the electoral system, good governance, and the importance of political participation, and developed a national and local debate series between university students, among other activities. And then this one right here, I thought this was hilarious. A 2006 study commissioned by USAID to determine the effects of its democracy assistance programs between 1990 and 2003 found that even when controlling for a variety of other factors, USAID democracy and governance aid had a significant positive impact on democracy, while all other U.S. and non-U.S. assistance variables are statistically insignificant. You guys catch that? USAID has also stepped up efforts to evaluate its democracy and human rights programs in recent years. This is how, not only is it like CIA and all sorts of shenanigans through, oh, hey, we got, Ash just broke news. Breaking, Doug Collins confirmed. Breaking, court orders DOJ to provide information on comms between Jack Smith and Fani Willis regarding the prosecution of then President former Trump. That's interesting. But yeah, CanCon, I see CanCon in the chat. USAID is the coup orchestrator. That's exactly what it is. They're just instituting democracy all over the world. But no, this is the color revolution, the Gladio, the regime overthrow group. This is them. This is deep state through and through. And it's huge that they're being kind of toppled right now and investigated through. And if they have access to like classified intel reports, that stuff starts coming out, this is a great place to show some exposure. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about the COVID stuff and the role they played there. I mean, this is it. Maybe we'll get a payment to a group to blow up the pipeline over in between Russia and Germany. That'd be cool. Nord Stream. But guys, that might be all I got for today. We got through that pretty good, under an hour. Don't forget, get your tickets. Great American Restoration Tour, March 6th through the 9th, in person or virtual. We would love to see you there. It's going to be a great time. And then also, I will come right back and get the boosts and the rants after I play the little outro here. Make sure you guys are following us here. Give this a thumbs up. Stay tuned for our coverage of the Netanyahu-Trump conference. I think that's everything. So yeah, hit the thumbs up, and we'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Let's get started.
That's what she said.
Oh, that's real good.
Why they stopping me?
All right, guys. Like I said, that outro I played just so we have the portion to clip for the podcast. If you weren't aware, all of our shows are uploaded to Podbean, so you could download the Podbean app or however it works and listen to us if you'd rather not watch us live. But we appreciate you guys watching us live when you can. A couple rants here. Kitty Kubiak. John, would it be possible to increase the size of your screen share like on Power Hour or Baseless? Love your handsome visage, but can't read your articles. I appreciate all that. We are going to be starting the Substack, the show notes. So it's going to be completely free. dailyherald.substack.com. That's HEROLD. But if you subscribe over there for free, we're going to start doing show notes every day, every show. So you'll have all the links. You can read them yourself. Maybe we'll even get to a point where we can submit that like during the show or before the show. It sounds like a lot of work and planning, but a lot of these articles I'm lining up within the last hour. So I don't know if that'll be possible, but that way you can read them yourself and you don't have to worry about the screen size. But I appreciate the comment. 12 Indie Boy, nice to see you, man. There isn't too many federally owned enterprises in the U.S. I'm interested how the EO will actually be set up. I am interested as well. Looking forward to seeing you and JC at Gartman. Lee Walden, John, here's a few recommendations for the deep state. First one would be rat bastards. Another might be shark bait. How about convicts? Thank you for that, Lee. Ash, with the breaking news about Doug Collins being confirmed and the court ordering the DOJ to provide information on comms between Jack Smith and Fannie is certainly interesting. Very interesting. Then also, Ash said, also notable, Mark Elias did not mention USAID in his newsletter today. I find that weird. I find him to be weird in general, but I do not subscribe to his newsletter. He's not on Twitter anymore, so I don't see him over there either. I don't think anyway. But yeah, this USAID stuff, I've been messaging with Mike Benz about getting him to come on, and he's just swamped right now. And so, I mean, he's going on the bigger shows. I totally get it. But eventually he's going to come on to the show and outline some stuff for us on the USAID. Just so fascinating. But yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. I am going to be doing an interview later today with over on Beer at the Parade's channel. So make sure you guys check that out. Otherwise, yeah, stick around here on Badlands. We'll be doing that live coverage later, and we'll see you tomorrow.